Sophie Cunningham is saying here about the Indiana Fever offense should be obvious. This should be how it is. If you're a Caitlin Clark, if you're a LeBron James, your system should, your basketball offensive system should run through that superstar.
All right, so Sophie Cunningham, she's suddenly the villain again. The WNBA actually pulled her aside because she said something that, let's be honest, every single fan already knows. The Fever's offense runs through Caitlin Clark. And somehow, that undeniable truth set social media on fire. So here's the question. Was Sophie wrong to say it publicly, or was she just bold enough to finally tell everyone the truth? Seriously, let's break this down, because the reaction to her comments has been absolutely ridiculous.
And Sophie Cunningham has come out and said such, and says that it was running through her. I guess when she was on the court. Now, we saw a few times where it looked like it was actually running through her. But we also saw times where it looked like it absolutely was not. She was playing off the ball way too much. But what has surprised me about these comments is Sophie Cunningham is getting attacked.
Look, she didn't insult anyone. She didn't leak any classified team secrets. She simply stated a fact. The Fever's offensive system runs through Caitlin Clark exactly as it should. That's not shade or a diss. That's just basic basketball logic. But apparently, in today's WNBA, stating the blindingly obvious can actually get you a warning. So, here's the breakdown. On her podcast, Sophie was explaining how truly elite players, like Caitlin Clark or LeBron James, fundamentally shape their entire team system. She pointed out that when you have a generational talent like that, the offense just naturally flows through them. That's how it works.
Caitlin or like a healthy LeBron, wherever they go, that team will probably be above 500.
Yep. But
is that fair to say?
Yes, but I think that the reason behind that is because those types of athletes, they get to come into an organization, they have the green light, and they can do whatever they want. Where that is very rare to get drafted and be able to control the whole system.
Right. Was CC making decisions like?
Yeah.
With it? Yeah.
As she should.
No way.
As she should, but I also think that they... Go ahead.
That's crazy. I didn't realize that. She's just young. I just didn't think that.
But when you have a generational talent like that, she should have a lot to say of the system. I also think when
she literally said, asterisk, when you've got a talent like that, they should have a say in how the system runs. Asterisk, that's it. And suddenly, chaos erupted. Fans started arguing. Reporters immediately clipped the quote completely out of context, and the league apparently wasn't thrilled either. According to sources close to the Fever, league representatives actually reached out to remind Sophie about media discipline and the importance of limiting internal discussions. Translation: stop talking about Caitlin Clark on your podcast. Okay, so let's get this perfectly straight. A player gets warned for saying the offense runs through a superstar who quite literally leads the entire league in ratings, merchandise, and headlines? That's not controversy. That, my friends, is pure comedy. But here's where it gets even more absurd. Some of the fiercest backlash actually came from Caitlin Clark's own fans. Yes, the same people who obsessively post highlights of Clark pulling up from the logo were suddenly mad at Sophie for, what? Complimenting her? Comments started flooding in. Asterisk, I'm so sick of Sophie. Asterisk, asterisk, she talks too much. Asterisk, asterisk, she's clout chasing. Asterisk, asterisk, she brings unnecessary drama. Asterisk, really? Drama for saying the offense should run through Clark? If that's controversial, then water's controversial for being wet.
As we saw what happened, the one game where I'll say you're pretty confident that this was happening was second half of Atlanta, where Caitlin Clark kind of got into it with Stephanie White at halftime, and they come out in the second half. Tash Howard's benched for a lot of it. Kelsey Mitchell gets benched for a good bit of it, and they really go on their huge run, where they go from losing at halftime to winning by 20.
Let's be brutally honest here. Sophie's just calling out what everybody saw all season. When Clark had the ball, the Fever looked alive, right? But when she didn't, It honestly looked like 5 players running 5 different plays. And here's the part that's actually worth talking about. Sophie wasn't just some outsider looking in. She was in that locker room. She's the one who saw exactly how the team operated behind the scenes. So, if anyone has the right to talk about how the offense works, it's absolutely her. Now, the WNBA, they notoriously don't like it when players talk without approval. They crave control. They want that perfectly clean image. No messy quotes. No spontaneous podcast moments. But Sophie, she's clearly not playing that game. She's always been outspoken. And get this. Remember earlier this season when she was the only Fever player who physically stepped up for Caitlin Clark after she got fouled hard? Yeah, while everyone else backed off, Sophie got right in people's faces. And that right there is exactly why she's so polarizing. She plays with fire, she talks with unflinching honesty, and she definitely doesn't filter her words to make people comfortable. But here's the thing, if this league actually wants personalities and marketability, they should be thanking her, not warning her. Because guess what? The WNBA's explosive growth right now isn't coming from quiet, sanitized press conferences. It's coming from players who speak their minds, like Clark, like Sophie, like Angel Reese, like Aya Wilson. Fans tune in because they care about the stories, not just the scored S.O. now. Sophie says one simple line of fact, and the league panics like she just dropped classified government information. Meanwhile, the Fever's entire playbook is basically get the ball to Clark. But here's the even bigger issue. This whole incident totally exposes the tension inside Indiana's locker room that fans have sensed all season long. Because when Sophie said the system should run through Caitlin, that wasn't just commentary. It was a subtle but pointed jab at how often it didn't happen. We've all seen it. Possessions where Clark is parked in the corner, literally standing there while someone else dribbles the clock away. That's not strategy. That's confusion. It's not on Sophie for noticing it. It's on the coaching staff for pretending it's fine. Yet somehow, she's the one being told to keep quiet. What's even funnier is that even the people defending her online have started joking that she should get a lawyer before doing another podcast episode. That's how bizarre this whole situation has become. Deep down, people know Sophie was right, but they're uncomfortable admitting the team still has problems consistently running the offense through Clark. It's just easier to call her too loud than to admit the system was broken. The irony is, the Fever desperately need voices like hers in the locker room. She's one of the few players who shows genuine passion when things go sideways. She's the one willing to call out lazy rotations, missed box outs, and a lack of communication. This is leadership, just not the kind the league likes to see on social media. But here's where this story turns from amusing to genuinely concerning. Apparently, some within the WNBA front office actually think Sophie's comments undermine organizational unity. Seriously? What's unified about pretending everything's perfect and ignoring obvious issues? If Clark's undeniable greatness is the very foundation of the Fever's rebuild, then building around her isn't controversial. It's just common sense. You simply cannot win games while ignoring your best player. You cannot grow a league by silencing players who speak the truth. And you definitely cannot warn Sophie Cunningham for saying what fans and analysts have been screaming all year. Give Clark the ball and let her cook. Now, let's really dig into why Sophie's comments hit such a nerve, and why the league's reaction says way more about them than it does about her. Because let's be honest, Sophie Cunningham didn't expose the Fever. She exposed the WNBA's absolute obsession with controlling the narrative. The league desperately wants to grow its audience, but it also wants every single quote sanitized and pre-approved, like a bland corporate press release. And ironically, that's exactly why players like Caitlin Clark exploded in popularity in the first place. She doesn't sound like a PR intern. She sounds like a real person. Sophie's the exact same way. She speaks like a player who's been through it, the wins, the fouls, the cheap shots, the media spin. She's not afraid to say the quiet part out loud. And that, my friends, is exactly what this league needs, authenticity. But instead of embracing that, the WNBA panicked. They saw one clip, a couple of social media meltdowns, and suddenly Sophie's too outspoken. Meanwhile, they'll happily promote drama when it helps engagement. When Angel Reese and Caitlin Clark bump shoulders, that's passion. But when Sophie calls Clark a generational talent, suddenly it's controversial. Make it make sense. The truth is, Sophie's podcast comments didn't just strike a chord with fans, they rattled people inside the organization. Because what she said between the lines hinted at something much bigger. The Fever's internal hierarchy is still unclear. Who's leading? Who's following? Because if the offense should run through Clark and everyone knows it, then why didn't it consistently happen this season? That's the uncomfortable question nobody wants to answer. Even Coach Stephanie White's post-game interviews felt cautious all year. She'd say things like, "We're learning to balance everyone's roles." Translation: we're still figuring out how to build around Caitlyn without making it look like it's only Caitlyn. But that's exactly the problem. It is Caitlyn's team. Everyone knows it. Even the sponsors know it. The Fever's jersey sales, ticket sales, and national coverage are all built around her name. Acting like it's some kind of democracy on the court just confuses everyone, including the players themselves, and that's why Sophie's words hit so hard. She said what the coaching staff couldn't. She basically said, give Caitlyn the green light and let the team adjust around her. It's not rocket science, it's basketball, but instead of applauding her honesty, the WNBA decided to treat it like a PR emergency. And you know what's truly crazy? Sophie wasn't even critical. She was complimentary. She compared Caitlyn Clark to LeBron James. That's one of the biggest compliments a player can possibly give, and people still got mad. Fans said she was riding coattails. Others said she was speaking for attention. But ask yourself this. If she had said the exact same thing about Aya Wilson or Breanna Stewart, would anyone have cared? Probably not. Because this isn't really about Sophie. It's about Caitlyn Clark and how every single sentence involving her name somehow turns into a social media storm. The league knows Clark moves numbers, big numbers. That's why they want to control the conversation. But they can't, because players like Sophie keep reminding everyone that Clark's presence changes everything. And deep down, that makes some people incredibly uncomfortable. The moment you admit Clark's monumental impact, you also admit the WNBA's success depends heavily on one player. And that, my friends, is a tough pill for some longtime insiders to swallow. Now, the wildest part of all this, Sophie isn't backing down. After the backlash, she posted a simple tweet. Nothing but love, just facts. That's it. Short, simple, confident, and honestly, that sums her up perfectly. Sophie's not afraid of smoke. She's been getting booed since college. She's been called every name in the book. But she always keeps showing up, ready to compete, ready to defend her teammates, including Caitlyn Clark. Remember earlier this season when Clark got shoved to the ground and everyone just stood there? Sophie was the only one who stepped up. That's the fundamental difference between her and most of the league. She doesn't hide behind, keeping it professional. She protects her people. Now, seeing her get labeled as the problem for speaking out is honestly laughable. And it's not just fans noticing. Reporters are starting to push back too. Several WNBA insiders privately confirmed that the league's reaction to Sophie's comments was completely overblown and that nothing she said violated any media guidelines. So, why the warning? Because she made the league uncomfortable. And that's exactly why her voice matters so much. When you start getting media warnings for telling the truth, it means you're hitting the right nerve. But here's the ultimate twist. Caitlyn Clark herself reportedly didn't mind Sophie's comments at all. According to team insiders, Clark actually laughed about the whole thing, saying something like, "Sophie's just Sophie." That, my friends, says it all. Clark didn't take offense. The team didn't implode. The only people panicking were those trying way too hard to keep the league's image artificially polished. Here's the profound irony. The WNBA desperately wants to grow its audience, yet they keep punishing the exact personalities that actually make fans care. Sophie's outspoken. She's confident. She's fearless. She's precisely the kind of player who sparks debates and drives clicks, but instead of celebrating that, they want silence. Meanwhile, the fans, they're tired of scripted interviews and safe sound bites. They want real talk. And that's exactly what Sophie gives them. If the league's goal is truly to keep growing, they might want to seriously rethink who they're warning, because players like Sophie are the reason people outside of Indiana even care about the Fever right now. Her quote didn't hurt the WNBA. It helped it. It reminded everyone that Caitlin Clark isn't just another player. She's the player. The one the offense, the team, and probably the league itself should revolve around. And honestly, deep down, even her haters know Sophie was right. They just don't like that she said it out loud. Because when you speak the truth in public, it forces people to confront the uncomfortable politics behind the scenes. That's what Sophie did. And that's why the WNBA panicked. Because she didn't just praise Caitlin Clark, she exposed how much control the league tries to have over players who speak freely. And that's the real story here. Sophie Cunningham didn't get warned for disrespecting anyone. She got warned for breaking the script. And if that's where the league's at right now, silencing honesty, then maybe it's not Sophie that needs fixing. Maybe it's the system, because here's the truth. Stars like Caitlin Clark don't thrive in silence. They thrive in authenticity. They attract fans because they're unapologetically themselves. So if the WNBA truly wants to grow, it should let players like Sophie speak their minds. Even when it's messy, even when it's blunt, even when it makes headlines, that's how real sports leagues evolve, folks. You can't build global excitement around a league if you treat every honest opinion like a crime scene, and right now, Sophie Cunningham just reminded everyone what real competition and real honesty look like. Oh yeah, the WNBA can warn her all they want, but the fans? They're listening. Because she's not wrong. She just said what everyone else was too scared to admit. The Indiana Fever offense belongs to Caitlin Clark, and the WNBA's future probably does too. What do you think? Was Sophie out of line? Or just saying what needed to be said? Drop your thoughts below, hit the like button, and subscribe for more no-fluff WNBA coverage. Because if the league keeps warning players for telling the truth, Sophie Cunningham might just become the most honest voice left in the game.